Amid the escalating campus protest, dozens of helmeted police entered Columbia University on Tuesday night to arrest and disperse pro-Palestinian protesters
who have taken over the campus building nearly 24 hours earlier. While police climbed up to the second story of Hamilton Hall, around 50 officers used an elevated ramp to climb into the building through a window.
Dozens of other officers surrounded the nearby protesting site, and onlooking students standing outside the campus jeered them with shouts of "Shame, shame." Officers were also seen leading handcuffed protesters to police vehicles outside campus gates.
Palestine! Free, free, free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Police boarded about 50 detainees onto a bus, each of them with their hands bound behind their backs by zip. Ambulances and other emergency services vehicles stood at the rear there.
The occupation began overnight when protesters broke windows, stormed inside and unfurled a banner reading Hinds Hall, symbolically renaming the building for a 6-year-old Palestinian child killed in Gaza by the Israeli military.
And you can see the NYPD personnel in riot gear raiding the Columbia University after students rallying in support of Palestine barricaded themselves in the Hamilton building there.
The New York City mayor mentioned that these aren't all students. He's mentioned that these are external elements. And joining us live for more on this from Columbia, where NYPD continues its raid on Hamilton Hall, our correspondent Susan brings us the latest. Susan, give us a roundup of what's happening on ground. We can obviously see a lot of these visuals coming in, several police officers entering as we speak. What's the latest?
So NYPD officers descended on Columbia just after 9 p.m. and they started clearing out those encampments. Protesters just outside of the camp were seen being placed in zip ties, as you mentioned, and special police units entered Hamilton Hall, where the protesters were occupying essentially since last night. They used a massive truck and a ramp. They entered through the window, as we saw the images. And the university had asked the NYPD to maintain a presence on campus through at least May 17th. This is 2 days after scheduled graduation. So we're going to continue to see heavy police presence over there. Earlier today, I was there all day, and the NYPD told us that they were ready to go in a lot earlier, but because Columbia is private property, they had to wait for the university to request NYPD presence to take the protesters out. One of the main concerns for the NYPD after giving the press conference this afternoon was that there are outside agitators that are inside the university, and they even do harm to those student protesters as well, so they were encouraged to disperse. When the students didn't disperse, then we saw this really hundreds of heavy police presence descending on Columbia.
Right, Susan, you're also a Columbia alumni. Just a short while ago, the NYC mayor said that the demonstrators occupying the campus building are not students and they have nothing to do with the university. What do we know about that?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because all day that I've been here, it's just been absolutely shocking to see Columbia really have protesters like this descend onto it, despite the fact that it does have a history of protests. Of course, even Hamilton Hall during the 60s, protesters encamped in there. But the problem with this was the NYPD showed footage to the public during that press conference of agitators, possibly not being students, wearing all black and being some actually armed with knives and other kinds of weapons trying to enter the university premise. This is terrifying for students that are in there. who were trying to peacefully protest. Now, the university has made clear that this arrest is not because the protesters were protesting Israel's occupation of Gaza, as what they call it, but the reason that these arrests are happening is because of violation of rules and regulations, notably trespassing and occupying Hamilton Hall.
Right, Susan, like I mentioned, being a Columbia alumni, talk to us about the significance, history and the landscape of the university's Hamilton Hall, where the demonstrators have barricaded themselves, and we've seen the NYPD personnel entering the Hamilton Hall through the elevated staircase.
Hamilton Hall is basically on Amsterdam Avenue, which is a little norther than Broadway, which is the street that basically both streets encircle Columbia University. The university has a whole block. The other side that we usually see those protesters outside and those images of protests outside in the past 10 days or so, that's near the journalism school. That's very far from Hamilton Hall. Hamilton Hall is all the way opposite on Amsterdam Avenue across the campus. It's quite a walk's way to get there. But the significance of that is, first of all, it's an administrative building, and second of all, again, it's part of Columbia's private property and really has a view of where these commencement and graduation ceremonies would take place later on in May. So it's a significant location on the one hand, but it's also very close to that big lawn that we've seen tents being occupied. That lawn is where graduation ceremonies will take place. And, you know, I talked to students over there. They are so upset that their school, last month of school, has been disrupted. Columbia is an Ivy League. Tuition there is up to $90,000 a year for many students. So this was really a disruption. It was absolutely shocking to see the campus in the situation that we did see it.
All right, Susan, thanks for getting us the latest there. We will be keeping in touch as the developments come in from Columbia University and other universities where we have seeing a lot of protests.